Say what you will about the traitor Primarchs, but the lore likes them a hell of a lot better than the loyalists.
What do I do?
You must give of yourself to the great red ape.
Okay, how much?
Sexually.
Wonderful.
Now that 10th edition is well and truly underway, let's talk about the traitor Primarchs, and where they are lore-wise, as well as narratively speaking. Now, when I say traitor Primarchs, I'm generally speaking about the demon Primarchs. You know, those 6 who have all ascended to demonhood. Fulgrim, Angron, Perturabo, Lorgar, Magnus, and Mortarion. But before we get into that, there is something I need to say. The support on my Iron Warriors The Virtue of Vengeance video, and more specifically, me talking about my personal struggles and my life and my situation, has been staggering. Even though this is one of my worst videos in terms of views ever on this channel, it did so well in terms of comments and likes and even subscribers it got me, because you guys really felt me. The comment section is full of people, the children of immigrants, people who have been in rough situations like that, who all agreed with me and just resonated, and people just saying iron within, iron without in the comments. It's enough to bring a guy to tears, I'll be honest. You guys are amazing fans, and I'm so lucky to have you. Even people I had never spoken to messaged me on Discord or just added me out of nowhere just to show their support, and I am eternally grateful. I really think it just sort of goes to show that there's a hell of a lot more to being a content creator than just creating content and getting views. It's about reaching out to people, and I guess being a voice that other people can hear in a way, and I really hope I can do that for you guys and do justice for you guys in that way, you know? But let's get to the video. And before we talk about the demons, let's talk about who isn't a demon. That being Horus, Alpharius Omegon, and Konrad Kurz. Horus, as we know, has died twice now. The first being at the Emperor's hand where his soul was destroyed, and the second being a clone of him in the Eye of Terror made by Fabius Bile that was killed by Abaddon when Abaddon cemented his control of the Black Legion. He's dead and he's never coming back. And this, in my mind, also applies to Konrad Kurz, who I believe absolutely let himself be killed. Some people believe that, oh, his soul is saved in a soul stone that was in his crown. Well, even if that is the case, what would that really amount to? I don't think Konrad Kurz is ever coming back, because honestly I feel like his death was the perfect end to his narrative arc, and how he had been developing as a character throughout the heresy. Now, Alpharius Omegon, oh boy, I have a whole ass video on that, and it is an hour long. And funnily enough, I and many other people consider that to be one of my best videos. In Major Kill's latest video where he talks about a bunch of other Warhammer YouTubers, my name actually gets mentioned in the comments section, and one of them cites that I am, quote, the only person to explain Alpharius Omegon in a way that makes sense. That was awesome to me, so I'm glad you guys liked that one. Obviously, you know, it's right there on the sidebar. Now, first and foremost, let's start with who, in my mind, is the worst demon Primarch. And that title has to go to, sadly, Lorgar. I love Lorgar as a character, but as a demon Primarch, he does nothing except get punked that one time. The Word Bearers are actually pretty effective and very terrifying as a legion. I would actually go as far as to call them the maybe 3rd best traitor legion, for that matter. That's in spite of Lorgar, not because of him. You see, after the heresy, he rapidly ascended to demon Primarch status after praying and meditating and just generally devoting himself to chaos. It kind of feels undeserved, honestly, because he didn't earn it through action. But immediately after that, he goes into 10,000 years of secluded meditation after getting his ass kicked by the warp-enhanced Corvus Corax on his home planet of Sakaris. Allegedly, starting 10th edition, he is returning to the galaxy, something that I pray will bring back our boy Corvus. But again, he just has done so little ever since the heresy, and I really don't expect that much from him. Next up on the list would probably have to be, and I'm sorry to say this, Fulgrim. But I think that's mostly a just for now sort of thing, because we are rumored to get more Emperor's Children content soon down the line. Now, the reason I put him so low is because his only real mentions in the lore so far is in the Great Scouring, wherein he managed to slit Rabute Gilliman's throat and have him put in stasis before retreating into the Eye of Terror, which I just realized I think makes him the only demon Primarch to ever win a fight against a regular Primarch. Mortarion lost to Jagatai Khan, Angron lost to Sanguinius and the Lion, Magnus lost to Vulcan, Lorgar lost to Corax, Mortarion lost to Guilliman. Like, I think it's just him. And has allegedly been on a pleasure world gifted by Slaanesh herself, or himself, whichever you pick. And from there on, he's done very little, aside from that one instance where he did venture into real space in order to be confronted by Rylanor on the planet in that one short story. You've heard the song. I assure you, you've heard the fucking song. And aside from that, he just hasn't done much. He's killed an Iron Hands captain that one time, he killed some guardsmen, but there was one instance where, upon Guilliman's return, he did actually possess one of his archconsuls in order to directly taunt him taking a certain personal pleasure in this because he is the one who struck Guilliman down to begin with. I really, really hope this ranking changes, but he's done so little ever since the end of the heresy, but his design is awesome and his legion is awesome. I hope we get more, but as it stands, he is very low on that list. Next up has to be Magnus the Red, in my opinion. And that's because even though Magnus is probably the most active out of all the demon Primarchs on the galactic stage, he is probably the least effective, and it pains me to say that. Even when he does succeed, it never amounts to anything. It's some trivial bullshit. Like, he has attacked Fenris twice. The first time he got his ass kicked. The second time he still got driven off, but oh, he succeeded because he transported Sortiarius above Prospero and created a warp rift that we never hear about again. And apparently he's trying to elevate humanity into a psychic race by luring psychers to Sortiarius, which is now closer to the center of the material realm. But again, we just never hear anything about that. Like, is that even successful in any capacity? He was also beaten by Rabute Guilliman because he tried to trick the resurrected Guilliman into opening a portal to Terra, but Guilliman instead opened one to Luna, and then was able to beat him there with the aid of Sisters of Silence. Like, how do you get outsmarted by Guilliman when you're supposed to be the pawn of the god of knowledge and are supposed to be the smartest Primarch anyway? After this, he actually tried to instigate a mass summoning of demons on Prospero, but was again foiled by the Space Wolves. Basically, he got literally pranked by Lucas the Trickster. So, again, it's just L after L after L with this guy. And not to mention the rubric, which saw most of his legion literally turn to dust because he decided to trust Ahriman with something important. It really sucks because I think Slaanesh and Tzeentch are probably the coolest Chaos gods and have the most interesting minions and demons, but they get punked the most. Like, it sucks. And out of all the Primarchs, I think he and Mortarion have, I think, the least potential going forward because they've already had their big returns. They've had their big reveals, they got their models and everything, yada yada yada. We've seen what there is from them, and I think from Magnus there was definitely a lot less to be had. His return was just honestly a disappointment. Like, we still have yet to see things from Lorgar and Fulgrim proper, but yeah, Magnus I think is basically done for the next little while, for the next several years. And it should also be noted that his traditional rival, the Space Wolves, their star has really fallen off, I think, in both the lore and the fandom. People don't really care about them as much anymore, and in my mind, they've kind of been replaced in people's hearts as the really human barbarian faction with the White Scars, who people are really warming up to, thank God. And having just mentioned him, he is next on the list, Primarch of the Death Guard, Mortarion, the Pale King. Now, you could compare Mortarion to Magnus in that he has been more active in the galactic stage and has met with a fair degree of failure, but I would say he has caused way more havoc and destruction across the Imperium than Magnus has by far. The biggest example being, of course, the Plague Wars against Rabute Guilliman across Ultramar. These guys all really have it out for Guilliman, holy shit. The last we saw of Mortarion is him being sucked into the Garden of Nurgle after losing his duel with Guilliman, wherein he is going to be punished for having disobeyed Nurgle. He actually wasn't even supposed to be there fighting him to begin with. That's one thing that makes me think we're not going to see him for a little while, but he is obviously not dead. Next up is Perturabo, the Lord of Iron. No, you're biased. And I want to knock this one right out of the park here. A lot of people are unsure if Perturabo really is a demon Primarch. Some people believe that maybe he just seems like one with how much armor he has on and just how temperamental and angry he is, but I do believe he is one, and it's not entirely out of character because in the book Mortis, he does comment on his way to visit Horus Lupercal, thinking, man, Horus and all my other brothers really are slaves to this power. But if I really wanted to, I bet I wouldn't be a slave. I could master it where they failed. And you might be able to argue that he kind of has. That's why he's so high up on the list. You see, being a demon prince of Chaos Undivided, he isn't subject to those same fickle whims of the gods as, say, someone like Mortarion or Angron is. He has a lot of free reign and can even call on specific gods to do specific things. A good example of this being when he invoked Nurgle to create a cyber plague, like a scrap code plague that infected an entire Forge world. The whole cities would get up on mechadendrite tentacles and just wreak havoc on the surface of the planet. It was total pandemonium. Like, please, show us more of that. Tech Warpcraft is so cool. He's also used his newfound mastery of the warp to open warp portals for Abaddon the Despoiler. He's not subordinate to him, Abaddon comes to him and his resources, because he has a command of immense resources and material for war at his disposal, a lot more than the other Primarchs. You see, the Iron Warriors were one of 3 legions to stay intact after the heresy. Lorgar doesn't do much with the Word Bearers. The Death Guard are starting to actually fall apart. A lot of them deserted Mortarion after the Plague Wars, as well as always having to deal with Typhon be a contender to his authority and a thorn in his side. But Perturabo is wholly uncontested in his mastery of the Legion. They squabble amongst themselves, sure, but they all answer to him and always fall back to Medringard, his fortress planet, one of the most redoubtable places in the galaxy, and that thing runs like a well-oiled fucking machine. His control over the Legion is actually so absolute, he will occasionally instigate civil wars in the Legion itself in order to cull the weaker elements. Yeah, that whole decimation streak never went away. He still does that, and it ensures that the Iron Warriors are still operating at peak capacity. It is a meritocracy where new figures rise and fall as opposed to having the same people in charge for thousands of years at a time and growing stagnant. And he also orchestrates consistent siege campaigns against the Imperium whenever he stumbles across a fortress world. These are highly calculated campaigns waged in the old way, with the powers of warp only ever as a tool, not the controlling factor. And he has collaborated with Vashtor many a time. It is said they have worked together on several projects, so he has actually finally made a friend. I'm happy to say it. That's actually again something I predicted, that the Iron Warriors and Vashtor would be close, and Perturabo does have a personal relationship with him. I think that's really cool. Now, there is one thing though. He did actually lose a war against his brother Mortarion when they clashed to gain the secrets of a certain Dark Temple with warp knowledge contained inside. And they did lose the attrition because the Death Guard's plagues eventually began to wear down their machines and get at them even through their armor. Now, Perturabo backing out might seem like a massive L, but it's really not. I'm gonna sound like a massive apologist here, which is good, because I am. It shows that he still has a level of tactical acumen. He's not completely lost to the warp like other Primarchs are. He knows when to cut his losses and therefore preserve his strength and resources. It shows he's still the man he always was, one of the best and most dangerous beings in the galaxy. But he is not number 1. That spot can only go to Angron himself, Lord of the Red Sands. Holy shit, this guy is scary, and he has only gotten scarier. Like, for example, his first big return to the mortal realm was him leading his World Eaters and a bunch of demons in a massive charge across Imperial space that caused a lot of destruction and even carved out a small realm. It has taken almost 3,000 to 4,000 years for the Imperium to reclaim 90% of the 70 sectors that were corrupted, forced into rebellion, or otherwise ravaged by Khorne and Angron. Yeah, a sector is about 7 million cubic light years, by the way. Yeah, you see, he might not muck around in the material realm as much as, say, Mortarion or Magnus, but when he does, oh boy, somebody's about to get hurt. A great example of this is the infamous First War for Armageddon. He absolutely ravaged the planet, and even after he was banished by the Grey Knights, his mere presence triggered an internecine conflict, the Months of Shame, where the Inquisition and Grey Knights would effectively go to war against the Space Wolves, arguing over if the civilian populace of Armageddon should be allowed to live because his mere presence is such a tainting factor. This alone would make him absolutely terrifying and definitely one of the best demon Primarchs, but it is the most recent stuff that's come out during the Arcs of Omen series, something that's near and dear to my heart because it's where this channel got its start, that he truly becomes a menace, because now he can't be truly banished from the material plane. Even if he's defeated and destroyed, he will be back in 8 weeks, 8 days, and 8 hours exactly. That is nothing. He is effectively a constant in the material realm now. And it's so hard to kill him to begin with, because Khorne will just revive him if he gets close to death. He just keeps coming back. Like, when he attacked a small mini Astronomicon device on the planet of Malakbael, he would be obliterated when he destroyed the device, but Khorne would immediately bring him back, and after just a moment of oblivion, he would find himself back on a different battlefield somewhere else in the galaxy. Like, boom, instant turnaround time. Oh, and let's not forget about Malakbael, the fucking murder curse, because when he destroyed that device, it caused a psychic backlash that basically corrupted everybody nearby. The massive release of psychic energy as he brought up his great sword and struck it down onto this beacon caused Khorne to literally get up out of his seat and swing with him. This effect drove everyone into a mad blood rage, screaming blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. And this was an entire Indominus Crusade fleet. There are 10 of those. Even if Indominus Fleet Quartus, the one that was corrupted, was one of the smaller ones, that's still anywhere from like 5 to 7%, because not the entire fleet was corrupted, of the entire Indominus Crusade, not just wiped out, but flipped to the enemy's side as raging berserkers. That is terrifying. That is mind-boggling. That would be a crippling blow to most armies. And sure, the last we saw of him was him getting defeated by the lion, decapitated by the Emperor's shield. Still, we know he's gonna be back, and when he's back, I can't imagine he's gonna be happy about having been beaten by the lion. He is probably the single most destructive force in the galaxy, and I honestly think the writers might have overdid it with him. That's too much to reasonably expect anything other than him to be a threat. And that's not to mention just some of the goofier stuff about him, like how the sword he currently wields along with his axe, that wasn't crafted as a sword. He was just in the gladiatorial arenas in the warp and saw a demon of Slaanesh showboating so much about its gladiatorial skill that he just grabbed a piece of metal and started beating the demon with it until it got so hot it just forged itself into a demon blade. That's what I love to see, holy shit. So, to briefly recap, Horus and Konrad Curze are dead, Alpharius is dead but Omegon is probably still active in the galaxy somewhere, watch the video. Lorgar is out of hiding and has done nothing. Fulgrim is active in the galaxy to a degree, and will likely be making a proper return soon. Magnus has more or less already made his return and hasn't really accomplished much. Mortarion made his return and is now banished back to Nurgle's Garden despite being pretty active in the galaxy. Perturabo has yet to make his return and has been fairly damn successful. And Angron has made his return already in a big fucking way, and for all intents and lore purposes, should be a still active threat in the galaxy and has caused massive devastation. He's been a presence for a long time now. But what do you guys think? Do you guys agree with my rankings? Do you guys agree with my metrics? What traitor Primarch do you want to see come back next? Either Fulgrim, Perturabo, or Lorgar, or another shot for one of the ones that we've already gotten. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below and hear your thoughts. But until then, I will see you in the next video.